And kind of going back to the whole fitness thing too, is like when your body's one of the side effects of cortisol, your body retains a lot of fat because it thinks it's dying. Anytime your body thinks it's dying,
Yeah.
it's basically or in a survival mode. It tries to store as much body fat as it can because that's where most of your energy is.
Right.
So people like, they don't manage their stress as well. What they'll do is they'll do the opposite. They'll just kind of pump pills in their body to try to outwork an unhealthy lifestyle, or they'll just go to the gym and I'll run the treadmill another hour a little bit longer,
Yeah.
not realizing they're actually putting more stress on the body, and they're just worried about calories. You can burn as many calories as you want, but you could still be overweight. Like you
Right.
might lose weight on a scale, on a number wise, but your body fat percentage will go up. So all you're doing is becoming a skinny fat person.
Yep. Boom shalak lock. Here we go, baby.
All right.
Yeah. B, what up, man?
What up, man? Everything good, man? Looking good with the hoodie, man. I love it.
Like it almost looks like I have a little hair back there.
I love it.
You
What is that?
know?
Doves on your shirt? What are those?
It's seagulls. It's
Oh.
seagulls. It's one of my favorite sweatshirts. I lost it for a while.
Hmm.
I was cleaning out some like my drawers and I was like, oh my God, I've been wondering where this was. So like this is one of my favorites. It's like all comfy too, and it's got these funky. Well, one of them is silver anyway, but like
All right.
it's nice. It's nice. It's like
Yeah.
I always get fooled. I'm like, I got here. No, I don't. No, I don't, honey. No, no.
Yeah, that, that
Man,
that that was your hair. That'd be a bad hairline,
it'll
man.
be a bad hairline,
Yeah.
man. It'll be like, you know what this hairline looks like? It looks like the hairline from the kung fu movies I
Yes,
used to watch on
exactly.
Saturdays, bruh.
Yeah.
You'd be like, I'm going to whoop your ass. Yeah. I love this
I used to love
subtitle.
those movies, man.
Bruh, right? It just
Yeah.
I can recall like watching those movies and I was in such a calm place. Like even though it was fighting, I was just like calm and happy, man. I'd be drinking some probably orange soda at my dad's house and stuff. And I just remember it was just so it was such a good vibe and feeling, man, back
Yeah.
then. You know what I mean?
Times
Uh
are different, man.
things are different, man. And it's actually
Different.
um it brings up it's like, I'm talking about like good vibes and like those comfy feelings. And I think it's a good segue to like what we're talking about today, which is cortisol. And yeah,
Big topic, man.
stress.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think this is something that impacts everybody, right? Or no?
Yeah, it's yeah. If you haven't heard of cortisol, yeah, you probably live under a rock. People don't really understand how it works, or is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? They look at cortisol as just being a bad thing, which that's definitely not the case. You need cortisol, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Yeah,
But
man.
yeah, it's people need to know how to you need to know how to balance it. The problem is if it's too high for too long, that's when it becomes an issue.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm happy. Like, so it's interesting. So as we're starting to dig into this, I'm still on that piece of how synchronous it was when I'm looking through the notes that you sent, and I'm like, is cortisol really bad? And then I scrolled down, I was like, oh, there it
I
is.
guess not.
I guess not. But like,
Yeah.
so people like, talking about cortisol, as we start to get into this at this point in the podcast, as you're listening, I want you to think about what cortisol means to you. Like, what do you know about it really? Because the reason why I asked Brian this question is because, like, like, I've always thought that, like, when I hear cortisol, I'm automatically thinking about stress, fight or flight.
Hmm.
I need to get rid of, I need to, yeah, I mean, parts of me is just like, I gotta eliminate cortisol. I gotta get rid, I gotta come to a stress state and meditate all day. But
Yeah.
like, is that really true though, man?
No, I think most people they find cortisol as being bad, or they have a fear of cortisol is because when they have all these symptoms, they go to their doctor and the doctor is like, "Oh, you're just too stressed out. You're in a
Yeah.
state of adrenal fatigue." Then they look it up and they're like, "Oh, cortisol is the biggest stress." I'm like, "Let's how do we blunt this cortisol so it just how do we take this medication to blunt this cortisol, or how do we take a supplement to blunt this cortisol?" So it's like and especially in the fitness industry, it's huge. So I took a couple courses from the late Charles Poliquin called biosignature courses. And it was basically a 13 site modulation course. Depending on where you're holding more fat in your body, dictates an organ or a hormone that's inhibited.
Mm.
So one of the sites was the umbilicus. So we used to do a pinch test on the umbilicus, and
And where
that's
is
your
that? Like, because
cortisol
that's
site.
the umbilicus is like right at that like hip line. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right around your navel. Yeah, and that would be your cortisol site. And the best way to drop the cortisol would be to kind of drop your stresses. And maybe we talk about too, you have like all these different types of stresses, not just mental, emotional. It could be
Mm.
physical stress, like your body's always in pain. It could be thermal stress if it's freezing all the time in your house and you're going outside and you forget your jacket. That's stress on the body. You got environmental stress. You got chemical stress, which we talked about, which is medications. We got nutritional stress, which is probably the biggest problem is nutritional stress.
Right.
And then you're like your psychic stress, you know?
So I want to like be this. So this is so a couple things are coming to mind. First of all, I remember when I worked at Lifetime and you took us through those classes. Those were like over my whole experience working at Lifetime to date. Those were some of the most valuable experiences and learning experiences I've had
I
at
appreciate that.
Lifetime.
Thank you.
Yeah, dude, because like you dropped gems, bro. You brought. I remember you were showing us these different parts of the body that where you can like, okay, this relates to this relates to that. And I think it's important. Like, I want to take a scale back for a little bit and really dive into first of all what is cortisol, and also bring awareness to what you just said about the different types of stressors. Because I'm speaking for myself. When I would think about stress, I'd be like, "Oh my God, it's I need to calm down," or I was like financial stress. But like one of the things I really appreciate what you talk about is like the psychological stress, like the nutritional stress, the stress that's happening in the body, and the stress is really like a signal. It's like letting you know,
Yes.
like, hey, there's something going on here. Like, boop 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 boop. Just pay attention, right?
Yes.
So let's dive into like what cortisol is first, right? Because cortisol is really like a chemical that the body's releasing in response to something, correct?
Yeah. So naturally, like cortisol, you have something called your circadian rhythm.
Mhm.
And this gets basically hardwired in your internal clock after being born after about 3 weeks. And your circadian rhythm is a 24-hour rhythm. And cortisol is usually the highest when the sun rises. It all goes by how the sun rises and the sun sets. So around 6 o'clock in the morning, your cortisol starts peaking until about around 9 o'clock. And then it also has an inverse relationship with growth hormone. For those who don't know what growth hormone is, it's a recovery hormone, helps your body recover. Where cortisol kind of like almost like wakes you up and kind of breaks you down a little bit if it's progressed for too long. So 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, your cortisol is really high, growth hormone's really low. Then as the day goes on, your cortisol starts to dip until the night comes, and then your growth hormone goes up. So you should be wired during the morning time, and at night you should be kind of falling asleep. You should be ready to go to sleep. The problem is these days, like everyone's like just so go 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 go, and they have all this adrenaline pumping that they can't. That by the time like 8 o'clock comes around, they get their second wind, and they need something to kind of calm them down, whether it be like a couple glasses of wine, a couple drinks, some
Yeah,
melatonin, some other kind of sleep thing. Then they wake up the next morning, and a lot of that they don't get good sleep, and then their cortisol isn't high in the morning, so it just kind of like just blocks everything. So they're
creates a
not
full
living,
cycle.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're not living optimally according to their circadian rhythm.
Wow, man.
Does that
So
make
really,
sense?
like, yeah, so what I'm hearing is like that it's like the circadian rhythm and the cortisol, it's like they're doing a nice dance, right? Like
Yes.
once everything is in alignment, like the cortisol is going to be higher in the morning and then it's like it just starts to shift.
Yep.
Now, what I'm also hearing is like and is that when we're these external things that we take in, for example, when you said that, I'm thinking about like how we look at the phones, like how that distracts
Mm-hmm.
us, like the blue light, because all of
It's
a sudden
huge.
it's like, oh, it's light out. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's like, yo,
Yeah. Your body
also
thinks the sun is rising. It's trying to
right.
start your day, you know?
Dude, yeah. So it's interesting, man, because these little factors are tricking our body to think like, oh, well, oh, okay, let me spike up the cortisol, which in turn is starting to make it poor and a disruptor to the body, because now instead of it going in that balance and that dance with the growth hormone,
Yeah.
it's constantly just like, I'm taking over. I'm
Yes.
taking over. It's this is so
Yeah.
wild, man.
And kind of going back to the whole fitness thing too, is like when your body's one of the side effects of cortisol, your body retains a lot of fat because it thinks it's dying. Anytime your body thinks it's dying,
Yeah,
it's basically or in a survival mode. It tries to store as much body fat as you can because that's where most of your energy is.
right.
So people like, they don't manage their stress as well. What they'll do is they'll do the opposite. They'll just kind of pump pills in their body to try to outwork an unhealthy lifestyle, or they'll just go to the gym and I'll run the treadmill another hour a little bit longer,
Yeah,
not realizing that they're actually putting more stress on the body, and they're just worried about calories. You can burn as many calories as you want, but you could still be overweight. Like you might
right.
lose weight on a scale on a number wise, but your body fat percentage will go up. So all you're doing is becoming a skinny fat person.
Yep.
Like you look at it like a long distance runner. No one's ever come to me and be like, I want the body of a long distance runner.
Yeah,
Most of them, I'm not saying everyone, but most of the runners, they're just like puny. They're just like, I don't even know the word. Like they're just like withering away, no
yeah.
muscle mass on. They're just bone and skeleton, and they're just, it's hard for them to, kind of balance out their cortisol levels
Man,
because
dude,
their body's always under a lot of stress. All they do is run, 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 run all day long.
it's so fascinating though, B, because it's like, we're talking literally like with the runners, right? Yeah, and also figuratively, that's the mode to hustle and run, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
People got
like,
people got the mindset of doing more is better. You
yeah,
know, you know,
I'm
like some people are
fascinated by
so
this,
stressed
man.
out. I'm like, dude, you'll gain if you're in here for the results. I'm like, there's some people I tell people, are you here for the workout or are you here for the results? If you're here for the workout, I mean, I can just put you through a workout, but you're not going to see the results that you want. If you're stressed out because you eat like shitty food in the morning, then you're stressed about your job, and then you go home and you have to, deal with your significant other, and you got money issues, and you're popping chemicals in your body all the time because you're on some kind of medication, and you're coming to the gym and you want to get a tough workout in. Honestly, you're better off just going to the yoga or meditating for an hour. That's what your body needs, but no one wants to hear that because we're in such a state that more is better, and they don't feel like but I'm not doing anything. Or you hear people like, I don't have time to do that, but they'll go to the gym for 10 hours a week and just destroy themselves. And you can see it happening. I can tell people, I'm like, all right, this person's got three to 6 months before an injury happens or something. They come down with some kind of like immunodeficient kind of like, cold or a flu or something like that. You can just
Right.
tell they're ticking time bombs. I've been doing this for 25 years. I mean, you can tell too, but
Listen, I've definitely like, especially when I was training full time, I like a lot of the people that I would train were corporate guys,
yeah,
and it was, their mode is never off. Like, it's like, oh wait, hold on, man, I gotta check this email. Like, wait a second, like, oh wait, hold on, one second. I'm just like, dude, how
yeah,
about this? Can we carve out time where like I'll give you a break in the middle of the session, just like focus here, and then like come to class on Sunday and do some yoga. And then like I just at the point where I started with my clients, I was like, look, you're a train wreck. We're gonna stop 15 minutes early, and I'm just gonna take you through meditation because I know damn well you're not doing it at home, right? And it was something I think that was needed, and I think it's something I had to learn too. Be like, I want to be free, being like, hey, I got it all together, man. Like, no, I think we talked about this before. I just picked up back up my sitting with self practice. Like every morning, I'm like, yo, I'm just gonna sit here and breathe.
good.
You know what I mean? Like, because listen, you know, it's sold as like, okay, sit with yourself or meditate for your stress. And I think that stress that it's really talking about is so many things
Yeah,
to give space, right? To give that spark part where it's like when you're coming back to that growth hormone, it's like where things could start to shift, where now all of a sudden the growth hormone takes over. And I don't have to do all these things to actually be healthy.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
You
It's
don't.
just,
Paul
huh?
Chek talks about Paul Chek has four doctors, and one of his doctors is Dr. Quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about just kind of
Dr. Quiet, like
Dr. Quiet, Dr. Happiness, Dr. Movement, and Dr. Nutrition.
brilliant.
So, and
Brilliant.
he talks about the four doctors. These are only four doctors you need. And he talks about Dr. Quiet. And he's like, you look at these blue zone people that we talked about. All these
Yeah.
people, what do they do? Every day they're doing something where they're in quiet. They're just kind of like at peace, whether they're out there gardening, they're minding, they're working on their, the meditation, they're doing, Tai Chi, Qigong, or whatever it is. That's like that's their Dr. Quiet to them. And these people are living to 100 years old. But people, we don't, us as like when you have like your CEO or you have your people that are coming to you and you're all stressed out. I mean, most of the times I'm like, I mean, every time I'm pretty much blunt these days. I don't really care, you know.
I love that. Like, do
It's
this.
one of my good qualities. I'm like, listen, if you keep going on what you're doing now, where do you think your body's going to be in 5 years?
True words, bro.
Like, where do you think you're going to be? You think you're going to be better? No, of course not. You're going to be on like 3 or 4 more medications, probably have a surgery, probably have a heart attack, maybe getting diagnosed with some kind of major illness. You're gonna have a mental breakdown. Like, fix it now. Stop jerking off. Stop, fix
Yeah,
it.
man. Fix that piece. Now, speaking of fixing, because we've talked a lot about like the meditative part, the quiet part. And I'm curious, like with what you've learned, are there other methods or tactics to address either reducing the cortisol or balancing out that cortisol with the growth hormone, man?
Yeah. So you want to be really strategic when you balance out cortisol. Like your cortisol is really high in the morning. You want it high in the morning. So you don't want to take things like the biggest things out there probably for like cortisol reductions is like ashwagandha, licorice root,
Yep.
uh, rhodiola. Those are very good for blocking your cortisol, but you want to take those stuff at like nighttime. Like vitamin C is really good for blocking cortisol. So you don't want to take vitamin C in the morning, really, or you don't want to take it at night or after a workout when your cortisol is really high and you have natural inflammation, which is going to help you repair yourself. So you want to take that stuff later on in the day,
Okay.
you know.
Got
But
it.
people like they don't know. They go like, oh, they find out on the internet like, oh, my cortisol is high because that's what my doctor said. I'm under too much stress, and they Google herbs that lower cortisol like ashwagandha, and they just take it like 3 or 4 times a day at any time. There's no strategic planning going on when they're trying to lower their cortisol. Does that
Mm.
make sense?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Because and I appreciate you saying that, and I think it's important because I think people will know about these different herbs and these different alternative medicines. Yet it's very rare that it's explained the way you explained it, right? Especially in
Sure.
regards to the timing. And I think that could be a frustrating thing for people, which again is going to bring on more stress because they're like, well, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
What the heck is going on? Well, it's a timing piece, right? It's like, okay, like if you're having this in the morning time, you're actually doing your body a disservice. And it's very interesting, right? Because it's like it can come to the point where the more if I'm uninformed, the more that I'm looking to help my body is actually the more that I could be harming it.
100%.
It's really
Yeah.
interesting, man.
Yeah. There's so
Like,
much crap out there, man. It's so much
oh,
crap. And I don't mean crap as like, I mean, like just bad information, which there is. There's just so much. People don't know what to do.
right.
And that's what we talked about. You need to be like, this is where like that Dr. Quiet comes in. Because when you have your Dr. Quiet, when you quiet the brain, your intuition will lead you to the right path all the time,
Every time, brother.
you know? So be working on stuff like that and working on like parasympathetic exercises where we get into breathing, we get into sometimes I get people to come in, they're just so stressed out, or I have
Yeah.
clients that I do online, they're so stressed out, and I'm like, all right, man, you're not working out today, man. We're just gonna do like some movement prep, we're gonna do some stretches, we're gonna do this, and they feel great afterwards. They have energy afterwards. They're not crawling out of the gym, or they're not sweating and look like they're about to die.
Yeah, man.
Um,
Well, people look at that as a stress reliever, though, B.
yeah, they do.
You know what I mean? Like they
That's
look at
that's
it like
dangerous.
it's
That's
dangerous,
dangerous.
bro.
It's
It's
dangerous.
dangerous. It's like,
Yeah.
look, I'm learning, and it's funny. I was talking to It's a mutual guy we know. One of my hip surgery brother. I think you know who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I saw him at the gym this morning, and I'm like, dude, you look great, man. You trimmed down. You're like, yo. He was like, I'm like, you looking like Ebony Mail, man. What's up, bro? And he was like, yeah, man. I'm doing more cardio. Like, even his whole demeanor just seemed to be more calm. And he was talking
Yeah.
about, I've been doing this, and I think it's really interesting because speaking specifically to men, like going to work out and hit the weights hard is like a supposed to, is allegedly like a stress reliever. Like I'm gonna freaking hit these weights hard. And like sometimes, like especially if I go at night and I do cardio, I see a lot of dudes going in on the gym, which is going counterproductive to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I also want to talk and bring in some of the other stress relievers that people will take on, like things like, smoking up a J, man, like getting yourself a little bit of hen rock or like, some gin martinis or an old fashioned and some Guinness stouts. Like, so I'm curious, like with what you've taken and what you've learned, like how do those factors, which people would term as a stress release, like things like the alcohol, how does that play into cortisol production and those things?
Yeah, the problem with alcohol and cortisol is like everyone always has like a certain baseline cortisol level. And
Mm-hmm.
when you take alcohol in your system, whether it be, to say regularly, what I mean by regularly, it could be one or two drinks a night. It can be, two or three drinks, 2 or 3 times a week, or it can be like just Saturday night, you're going out and you're having 5 drinks.
Yeah.
Statistically, that's considered regular drinking.
Yeah,
So
man.
anything around 4 or 5 drinks a week is considered regular drinking, according to these studies. And when you're a regular drinker, your cortisol levels are just naturally, the baseline is naturally higher. So you feel more stress throughout the day. You feel more anxiety than when you're not drinking. So when people need a drink to kind of relax themselves, this may be true, that they don't also realize that the level of cortisol is released is now, the baseline level of cortisol is now increased. So you're walking around with more stress, more anxiety, harder to lose belly fat because remember, cortisol side effect is you start gaining a little more fat just because your body thinks it's dying. It's in a fight or flight. So that's the problem with alcohol, with the correlation of cortisol. And we talked about people smoking weed in our sleep podcast.
Yeah.
When you smoke weed before you go to sleep, or even alcohol when you go to sleep, it just drops your testosterone levels, drops your growth hormone. You don't get that stage 5 REM deep sleep that your body needs to repair itself. So
Mm.
it's very counterproductive, which is not good. And like, I mean, it's like, I think last week I had like a glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine, and like I fell asleep fine, but 2 o'clock I woke up, I was like, bing, like my cortisol was like through the roof. My body's so sensitive on alcohol because I don't really drink that. I mean, when I drink, I probably drive like one, maybe 2 drinks every two couple weeks. Like I don't drink that much. So when I do have it, it's like, and I know it. I know what I'm about to drink. But sometimes I like a good red wine with a steak. If I'm staying in and I don't got to wake up the next day early, I can kind of like just kind of chill and do my thing. But I know I'm going to pay the price. I know my sleep's going to be trash. And I know next day is not going to be a great workout. you know,
Oh, it's
you know?
it's so true, man. What you say? Cause I think it was like uh it was like 3 weeks ago. I was out with my brother and I had an old fashioned and it was like 9:30 at night. And usually
Mm.
like I'm starting to wind down at 10, like and getting up early and stuff. And I remember like I just was wired. I didn't get to bed till probably like 12:30, maybe 1, and my sleep was trash. Like
Yeah.
no goody good dreams, none of that stuff, no visioning. Like, and I woke up, I was just like,
Yeah. You're just like, blah.
yeah, I'm just like, I was like, what?
yeah.
Oh, it was just not fun, man.
Like this day is going to suck.
It did too, man. It did. Thank God it wasn't one of my like GTS class days. I would have been like,
yeah.
help.
I'm very big on like catch myself when I'm in a negative mood. I'm like, all right, I'm thinking bad thoughts, change it, flip the switch, flip the script. And when I don't get good sleep, man,
Oh,
first thing I wake up in the morning, I'm like, all right, I have to meditate. I have to put myself in a good state. Otherwise, the whole day I'm just gonna be just cranky, man.
rap, man.
Rap.
So question two, because like well, just to switch it up a little bit, coming back to the meditation piece, because I think that's an important, we talked about it a little bit in the beginning, and I think I want to take a moment and really dive into what's the science that's happening in these meditations, right? Because like when we talk about the parasympathetic nerves and the parasympathetic system and the sympathetic system, and there's always in yoga, like in yoga, I'm teaching people about deep belly breathing. It's not like you're actually breathing into your belly, but as you're breathing, like you're taking in more oxygen into the body, which is helping your body to get oxygenated and help it to calm and tone down and actually help it to restore it and replenish itself. But when you're breathing deeply, it's like your diaphragm is lowering down into your body, which has your stomach protrude. And then as
Yeah.
you're exhaling, you're bringing the diaphragm up into your lungs, belly button comes into your spine, and now all of a sudden you're expelling these toxins. So, like in that, like, is there some science like you want to shed some light on that's like because these components, especially bringing in the oxygen, this is important in regulating that cortisol and the growth hormone, man. You want to talk a little
Yeah,
bit?
definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Everything you said is 100%. And so the best way to kind of like lower your stress levels really quickly.
Mhm.
So like, like a lot of people, like when they're about to step on stage and they do like a talk or they have to handle a meeting, their anxiety gets a little high, right? They
Mhm.
start stressing out a little more. So one of the best things to do to eliminate that stress quickly is do some kind of like what they call like a SIGH technique, SIGH technique.
Mhm.
So to eliminate stress quickly with real time tools to activate the parasympathetic system, which is designed for calming and relaxing. So parasympathetic, para meaning near or near the which is near the body. So the parasympathetic, most of it exists within the cranial nerves. For all your nerds out there, you got basically 12 different cranial nerves in your head that kind of go with like smell, your taste, your vision, and other stuff. And these cranial nerves are right below the neck or lower brain stem, and they go into the pelvic area.
Mhm.
So it's the physiological side. It's the respiration in general is used to calm us down. Breath work in general is used to shift your physiology and bring you into different states of mind. So when you inhale through your nose, like you're mentioning before, or the mouth, the
Yeah.
diaphragm moves down, and that's because the lungs need to expand, and your heart actually gets a little bigger, and that they need that expansion for space because you inhaled. And when that happens, your blood moves slower, and there's a little group of neurons called your sinoatrial nodes, which are in the heart, and that sends a signal to your brain telling it that your blood is actually moving more slowly through the heart. The brain then sends a signal back down to the heart to speed it up.
Yeah.
So what this means is that if you want the heart to beat faster, you want to inhale longer, inhale more vigorously than when you
Mhm.
exhale. And the opposite is also true. So if you want to slow your heart rate down, you do the opposite. So when you exhale, the diaphragm moves up, what makes the heart a little bit smaller, a little bit more compact, and now blood flow moves quicker. And the
Mhm.
sinoatrial node, which again, it's in your heart, registers that blood flow is moving more quickly and signals the brain and the parasympathetic nervous system neurons in your brain to send a signal back down to slow down the heart rate. So if you want to calm the heart quickly, you need to make your exhales longer and more vigorous than your inhales. That was a long explanation.
No, it was and thank you though, because like I think uh, I want I'm so happy that you took it there because how you described it is the complexity and genius of our heart and our systems. People, please rewind that if you need to. I think it's important for people to understand the communication that's happening when we're breathing and also the potent communication that's happening in your heart, these electrical impulses that are starting to steer with your nerves. The body's amazing, man. The
It's
body's
amazing.
freaking amazing. I'm like geeking out as you're talking about it. I'm gonna be editing like
Yeah, it's a fascinating machine, man.
it
It makes
is.
any like a rocket ship seem like a child's toy. And
Exactly, bro.
we don't know that much about it either, too, which is that's why I love this field, because you can always learn something. I can be doing
Every
this for the next
time.
50 years and I'll still be learning something every single day.
Brother, and I judge that what you just how you broke down like lowering the stress with the breath work and then like what's happening with the nerves and the communication. I think people are going to learn from how you described it, because I think it's important for people to know the importance of your breath, especially when it
Oh,
comes to this cortisol. And more than lowering stress, it's like what I'm hearing a lot in what you're saying, B, is the regulation, the
yes.
balance of all this, man, because that is important. And we started talking about that even in the beginning, bro. When we talk about the balance of the cortisol and the growth hormone, all these things, people, are important, especially when it comes to your stress. Like, look, there's going to be good stressors that you have in your life.
Yeah.
There's always going to be good stressors. Like, hey, listen, sex could be a stress for some
Yeah.
people. Actually, it is a stress. Like you're
Yeah.
like humping him. Hopefully you're not making that face. But like, look, man, you're humping, it's stress. Like, oh my goodness, is this gonna be good? All this stuff. You could be in your head. And then all of a sudden you're building this thing up, and then like all of a sudden there's this release, and then like where are you?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with you with just like stress in general, man. Like
Yeah.
if you're stressing about your
Breath is
body,
the most important, I think. Breath is the most important.
truth.
And I think that the reason is that because you do that close to 22,000 times a day. And then when people come to me, the first thing I always do is I talk about breath. Sounds very simple, but I talk about breath because I always do a breath test with them,
Yeah.
because I always have them, I always do some muscle testing on them, and I tell them to take a big deep breath. I already know if they're going to fail or not just by looking them walking into the gym, but I do it more so I can have a conversation piece with them. Like, all right, take a big breath. And the first thing they do is they breathe
Yup.
through the chest. They don't
Yeah.
breathe diaphragmatically. And their goal, and they're one of their, like, everyone pretty much has the same goal that comes to me. I mean, some people are different, but they want to lose weight, they want to tone up, they want to have more energy, be happy, and whatever like that. So if somebody comes to me and they're like say 20, 30 pounds overweight and their body fat's a little high, but they're constantly breathing through their chest, I have to explain to them. I'm like, listen, I was like, not to get not too much into, I'll leave some stuff out, but like when you're breathing through your chest, you're only getting 1/3 of the oxygen in your body. The other 2/3 of oxygen is not coming. You got to understand, disease, when you breathe diaphragmatically, so much more oxygen is getting in your body. And that's one of the best ways to prevent diseases, because diseases can't live in an oxygen enriched environment. Another thing is when you start breathing through your chest, your body thinks it's hyperventilating.
Yup.
So it lowers your pH, which basically means your acidity levels are very high. So your body's more acidic. And if you're trying to work out, you're trying to build muscle to burn fat, but your body's acidic, you're ice skating uphill. It's like, I think you said that, you're ice skating
Yep.
uphill.
Yep.
It's very tough to do. So the
Yes,
first thing I
brother.
always have you do is let's fix something you do 22,000 times a day wrong,
Right.
and work on diaphragmatic breathing. And another thing too, to kind of get a little bit more nerded out on you, is because a lot of people out there, they have back pain. A lot of people out there, they have incontinence, which basically for women, like I think like 48% of the women over the age of 35, they have incontinence issues, meaning that they can't, if a car comes out in the middle of the road and they need to make a quick movement, they can't do that without urinating themselves or having a little bit of pee. That's why
That's
a lot of women I've had tell me in privacy, like, I don't take group classes because I can't jump up and down because I wet myself. It's very, and a lot of it has to do with poor program designs. It has to do with bad eating habits because it thins away that pelvic region in there. But what happens is your body has what they call like your inner unit muscles. And think of it as almost like a cube. So you have the top part, which is your diaphragm, the bottom part, which is your pelvic floor, your front part, which is which say your abdominal, more specifically your TVA muscle, which is your transverse abdominis, which is your body's internal weight belt, and it wraps around your spine to the front. And then you have your multifidus muscles in the back, which
right.
stabilize your spine. So you got your back, your core, your pelvic floor, and your diaphragm. What people don't realize is they all work on the same neurological loop. So when I do the chest breath with
Mm.
somebody, and they first thing they do is they breathe through their chest, I know their pelvic floor is shit. I know their core isn't working. I know they have instability in their low back.
Mm.
So when they're
Mm.
like, I go to my doctor because my back is killing me, and I don't know what to do. And
Right.
he asked me, because we come to the gym, like, all right, well, you need core training. First of all, they don't know what the hell the core training
Similar
is.
things.
Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, you need to fix your breathing. Your breathing is trash.
Right.
You know, you've you have too much. I mean, I could talk about this for hours on like the spinal column and how it works. I've taken courses for the last 20 years on this, but it
Bro.
all kind of plays that role. And so breathing is huge, not just for lowering your stress levels, but just
Right.
for overall functionality and not being in pain all the time.
True words, brother. Quick question for you, like, because you said you could tell when someone's walking in that they're gonna be trash at like the breath
Yeah.
test. What do you see in a person walking in that has you say that?
Oh my lord. All right. Forward head posture. I know the core is going to be trash. Rounded shoulders. Not that I'm checking you ladies out, but if you got a flat butt, I know your core is not working. You know, I can see if your knees are buckling in, if your feet are pronating, I mean you're flattening out. I know
Mm-hmm.
your core is. I could tell the way you talk to me. If you're very anxious,
Right.
I know your core is not firing. There's so many different ways. I've
Jeez.
been doing this for so
Yep.
long. I watch people in the supermarket. I'm
Spot
like,
it. You're like, got you.
that's why people like, we teach movement prepping, like we do like not movement prepping, but we teach like, postural assessments. Like, I don't even need to do it. Like, I can just have you walk by me and I'll tell you 20, 30 different things that you need to fix in your body. Like,
It's like bing, 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 bing,
you
bing,
know,
bing, 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 bing.
yeah. But
Session.
I've been doing this for so long. And plus I use, and not to sound like, I use my intuition a lot. And I
Good,
ask
man.
when I'm on the table with somebody, I'm like, all right, why is this person not healing? And if I can't figure it out, I kind of like, I do Reiki and I do all this other stuff, which you do, and certain
Yeah.
things just kind of pop in your mind all the time. So
Dude, man, I love what you're saying, man. I do want to, before we start rapping and like giving people some methods, and I think we've been giving methods this whole time, but you
yeah.
mentioned something I want to touch on again because I think it's a term that people will hear a good amount, and it's adrenal fatigue.
Mm.
So, like from your perspective, like how would you describe adrenal fatigue? Is it like your body is just tired of being stressed? Or like how would you describe it to folks that are like, what is I hear it, but what the fuck is this?
Yeah, basically, adrenal fatigue is the simplest form is just an exemplification or a physical manifestation of the fact that you have more stress going on in your body that you can handle, that you can deal with. That's what
Mm,
it comes down to.
gotcha.
So there's a book, I actually have it on my bookshelves called Adrenal Fatigue.
Are
And they
you sure
talk
I don't
about,
have it? Are you
yeah, yeah, no, you didn't steal that one from me.
Good. Just wait till I come over next time, though. I'll be on the
Yeah,
lookout for
exactly.
that.
So there's actually they talk about 5 different stages of adrenal fatigue.
Yeah.
And most of us are like most of us are like in the stage 1, stage 2. But
Mhm.
again, kind of like we talked about with the Alzheimer's episode, the cognitive episode, most people don't go to the doctor until it's too late. So most people don't go to the doctor until they're like probably like stage 3, 4, or 5 adrenal fatigue,
Yeah.
and then it takes so much longer to heal, and
Mm.
your body just feels like crap. So basically, like, and it's not really the stress that causes the issue, it's how people handle the stress. Does that
What do
make
you
sense?
mean?
Especially in the mental emotional stress. Like, as being an entrepreneur, it's hills and
Yeah.
valleys, up and down. So when something bad happens to you and every day you're just like it's all good. It's gonna work itself out. For
Yeah.
some people are just like, oh my God,
Yeah.
holy crap, like the world's gonna end. I'm like, it's not really that big of a deal. It'll pass. So it's all how you kind of deal with the stress. But
I
there is a
was,
lot of
yeah.
ways. Like, I think the biggest stress is nutritional stress, because our food is absolute poison, and it's I mean, that's a whole nother topic. you
Yeah.
know um the best way to deal with that is just eat as much organic grass-fed foods as you possibly can. Stay
Mm.
away from anything that's GMO'd. Stay away
Mm.
from anything that, if it wasn't around 100 years ago, don't put in your body, man. Don't put in your body.
So no Skittles?
No, I don't think skills are around, but and again, nine.
Yeah,
If you're really looking to optimize yourself, make it like a 95-5 rule.
yeah,
If
yeah,
you just want to be
yeah,
basic borderline health, 80-20 rule. You know, your body will know what to do with the other 20% of shit that you put in your body. The
yeah.
problem is like it's so ass backwards. We have it totally backwards. We have the 595 or 2080. You know,
It's really interesting, man, because like when you say the nutritional stress, where my mind went to is that the emotional eating aspect of things. So if I'm stressed, and I'm thinking about for myself, like the times when I've emotionally ate, and it's compound. The stress is compounded. It's like I'm stressing about something in my life or whatever the scenario is, and rather than having alternatives to address it, I'm gonna hit up a fast food spot, or I'm gonna hit up some salty foods to like get a millisecond of dopamine or sugar in my body, help me feel good, when in reality, like I'm creating more stress in my internal environment.
yeah,
And like it's like I'm double, it's like I hit myself with a triple whammy, bro.
yeah,
It's freaking
yeah. Yeah.
and it's
The best thing to
common though, man.
do is figure out what type of fuel is best for your body.
Mm,
Don't listen to gurus out there. Don't listen to you and I or whatever. I would get the metabolic typing diet book,
yeah.
figure out what fuel that you need, what ratio of macros you need that works best for your body, and learn what your
Mm,
body needs. Because
mm,
everyone's body's different. You put 100 people up against the wall, and you put them all on a paleo diet. A
yeah.
third will get better, a third will get worse, a third will stay the same.
Yep.
That
True.
goes with any possible diet, and they all fluctuate. You might be doing, just say you're an amazing athlete, and I have you on a paleo diet, and you're doing amazing. Then you retire, and you're selling cars. You're not working out that much. That paleo diet now could be your illness. Your body
Mm.
doesn't need all that protein, maybe not need all that fat, maybe needs more carbs. So your body's always fluctuating depending on your circumstances,
Yeah, bro.
So you have to be really in tune with your body, listen to your body.
Damn, bro. That's like, man, that's like a mic drop right there, man. It's been like, and especially in line with what we're talking about today. It's like truly being in tune with your body, because again, cortisol is neither good or bad. It is something that the body naturally produces for a reason. So if we're failing to really pay attention to what's going on with the body, then it's going to completely go awry, just about with anything else in our life.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
B man, before we wrap up, any in regards to cortisol and
yeah.
like outside of anything that we have touched on already, is there anything else you want to leave with the people before we
Yeah, I
wrap?
think I think we I think we give them like a list of tips that they can do. So the
Yeah.
supplementation. So remember, cortisol. You don't want to take anything that's gonna like an adaptogen or anything like that's gonna which is gonna kind of blunt your cortisol in the morning.
Mhm.
So vitamin C at night, um, licorice root, ashwagandha. Take that at night. Don't take it post workout. Sleep is going to be huge. Do sleep. Another cool supplement is phospholine serine. Phosphatidylserine. Sorry.
Oh,
Look that up. Just if you have Google in front of you. Phosphatidylserine. And what that does, it revert. So if you have a reverse cortisol curve, meaning that you wake up in the morning and you're groggy, or you go to bed at night and you are wired, it's hard for you. That's a reverse cortisol curve. What phosphatidylserine will reverse that curve for you naturally through a supplementation. So again, you should be waking up in the morning and be like ready to go. At night, you should be able to crash. If you wake up in the morning, you're groggy, but at night you get your second high, your cortisol curve is backwards. Phosphatidylserine will help you out a lot there.
dude,
So
I would not have expected it to be spelled the way it's spelled.
people are like, how do you spell that? When I tell them, I'm like, how do I spell it, or how's it really spelled? somebody
Exactly.
once
Like,
somebody once told me a good speller could spell one word many different ways. That's me.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
would
So it has
not
a lot of
be
cool. Yes. So
thinking
there it is. Phosphatidylserine in there. So those are 4 supplements that you can do. Nutrition wise, eat according to your metabolic type. You have a Ferrari, you're not going to put diesel gas in it. So eat your right types of ratios.
that.
Sleep, get to bed before 10 o'clock. 10 to 6 is your best time between the hours of 10 a.m. or sorry, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Your body goes through physical repair. 2 a.m. through 6 a.m. Your body goes through a psychological repair. Go work on that. Sleep, meditation, huge. Breathing, huge. What else am I missing, Paul? Exercise. If you're going to
Yeah,
exercise,
movement. Movement.
exercise to your stress. If you have a stress, if you're so stressed out, don't go out there and run 5 miles. You're just going to cause more stress to your body. Don't go and have a heavy, deadlift day. You're going to cause more stress to the body. Do more like yoga or Tai Chi or whatever it is that you're doing. Anything that's going to slow the heart rate down.
It's like a stroll, man.
Yeah, man, just chill.
Dude, just like, that's been one of my go-tos. Like, I'm just like, oh, I need to figure something. I'm like, no, man, I'm just gonna go on a stroll and just like listen.
Yeah,
Just like listen. Like, oh, is that a blue jay?
yeah,
Hmm, where the hell is it? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just strolling around. Is that a rabbit that just ran past me? I don't know.
yeah.
And I think it's, listen, people, this is important because you notice it's like it's learning to slow things down. And that gives your body the opportunity to know what to do with something. When we start speeding up, we're creating these stressors. And it goes to any one of the stressors that you mentioned too before, B. Like,
Oh
when
yeah,
I'm speeding up, my body's feeling to know what to do to manage this stressor. So all of a sudden, it's going to be like, well, inflammation. Just
yeah.
keep the stress going. Just keep it going, man. We'll figure it out. Like the body's going to act accordingly. So give it the space to act aligned and go from there,
Definitely.
man. Go from there. Man, you know what we do, man. We did it again, damn it.
That's it.
We did it again, brother. We
Another
did
one in the books.
another one in the books. And listen,
Another.
speaking of that, man, we got a lot, like we've mentioned a lot of things that we've talked about in previous episode. We talked about the mind. So, like, if people check out the cognitive decline video, we talked about GMOs. Check out the glyphosate videos that we did. Those are very important. We also talked about emotional eating. We talked about stress management. We've talked about a lot of things.
Metabolic typing.
Metabolic typing was our
Yeah.
first video, man. That was
Yeah.
our first one. So people, go back, look at some of these things. If you've seen them before, see them again because I'm telling you right now, chances are very high that what you heard in the first video or the first time you heard it, you'll hear something different the second time or the third time. And also, if there's some things that you're digging and you're like, man, I hope they really talk about that, let us know. Put
Oh,
it in the
100%.
comments. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we've been getting great feedback and like things that people want to know. So you're gonna see, we're gonna be addressing some of these things that we hear from the people, man, from you. So let us know what you want to hear so we can research it. And like, we're gonna put it in Brian's computer brain, and then we're gonna talk about it. And then like let's chop it up. Like, share, subscribe, and share these insights with a friend because like this is our ikigai, man. This is our purpose here to support you in having your best health. And those things that you hear out there, this it's more than black or white. There's layers to this, people. There's layers. So listen, that's what we got.
Love it. Beautifully said.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, Duolingo. Yes,
Yeah.
we do accept sponsorships too. All right, yo. Be another good one, brother. Peace, everybody.
Appreciate you all. Thank you.